Good morning, seculars, or afternoon or evening, whenever you're tuning in. I am your host, Sunny Secular, and this is Secular Minority Podcast. On this podcast, we give a non religious, humanist perspective on the things happening around us and around the world. We conduct interviews, share stories, speak on issues, on rights issues, and there is a safe place here for all minorities. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, orientation, label, non label. There is no shunning here. Think of this as your home. Now, before we get into the guest today, I want to talk to you a little bit about um, the. I've been getting questions. Let's just put it like that. I've been getting questions about, well, what do you do to start a podcast? How can I start a podcast? My secret, I use Buzzsprout. I'm going to leave a link in the website, secularminority.com. It's going to be on this show, and it'll be a button that says start your own podcast. You push that button, that let Buzzsprout know that I sent you. And if you get a paid plan, they will send you a $20 Amazon gift card. Now you might be saying, well, why should I use Buzzsprout? Buzzsprout, the team at Buzzsprout handled everything. They had videos telling you step by step of how to start your podcast, what to do. Um, they help you get on all platforms. And also, if you don't have any equipment, they'll show you how to use your own equipment that you have at home. All you need is a quiet space. If you want to upgrade later on, they have videos to show you how to upgrade. So if you want to learn how to do podcasts, just push that link and check out Buzzsprout. All right. So for today, I am going to be interviewing Ethan Lawless. Ethan Lawless is on Instagram and he's on TikTok. That's where I met him. So I'm going to bring him in right now. Let's see if I can get him in. Can you hear me now?
I got you.
All right. I'm not sure why Zoom takes so long to unmute people. I can see you and everything, but it just took a while for me to hear you. So I'm
Well,
thinking,
it's got to do with my settings. I just downloaded it to the phone, but when I downloaded it, it didn't ask me for permission to access video or audio
oh,
until you invited me into everything.
okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate you joining me today, and I'm not going to take up a lot of your time with the interview. So I'm just going to get started. I told everybody where to find you on TikTok is where we met, and on Instagram.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you were on YouTube. Were you on YouTube as well?
I dumped some of my I dumped some. I keep my atheist videos on YouTube. I dump some of those on YouTube. Um, but eventually, when I get a chance to pick up some equipment, a better PC, a better mic, and a better cam, I'm probably going to do something a little bit different with the YouTube.
Okay.
Uh, Kind of somewhere along the same lines, I guess, as I do with TikTok, just over a longer period of time rather than just 60 seconds.
Okay. Okay. All
So
right. So,
my YouTube channel is like the 60-second atheist because I thought that was a good play on words because they're only
okay.
60-second snippets.
Right, right, right. Okay, so what I'll do is, beneath the video and also on the website, I'll put links to where to find you. But let's get into the title for today's show. We have the title to be Sex Fluid Gun-Toting American Atheist.
I thought that was an appropriate title.
Okay. All right, so let's start from the beginning. Um, just tell us what it was like for little Ethan growing up. Were you indoctrinated in Christianity, or how was that for you?
My childhood was really mellow as far as religion.
Oh,
It was very average. It was you go to church on Sundays, and me and my brother and sisters would piss and moan about it, and we'd still go. And eventually, when we got older, it just kind of petered off and stopped. We stopped going to religious services. We do it for holidays or special events, to appease family members, but that was about it.
right. Okay. Okay. So you really weren't into it even as a child.
Well, I made an attempt. That's actually how I came to atheism. I was a rough around the edges kid, and I somehow around the time I was about 13 or 14 years old, I got it in my head that if I read the Bible and became a really good Christian boy, that would solve all of my problems while I was in juvie, and I would be a good kid, and then my family could have me back and all this other. I had all this wild shit in my head. And so I literally sat down and I read the Bible word for word, and it was a process. It wasn't easy, um, because very early on in reading the Bible, I came across things that even at 14 years old, I had a moral issue with.
Right, right.
Like I can remember at one point considering God as a fictional character in a novel and thinking that he was just the most evil bastard ever. Like just mean spirited. And it didn't make any sense. Like, things didn't add up. And I didn't call it atheism at the time, but
Right.
I started walking away at the same time I tried getting into it. And
Okay.
my atheism was a process of evolution.
Okay. So when you were like, in the high school level and after high school, would you say that the atheism stuck more with you?
Atheism became a real part of my life in my mid to early 20s.
20s. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Um, I, I I grew up very uh protected, I guess you could say, almost secluded from most of society. Um, grew up in a very small town, rural, white America. My parents' property is surrounded on three sides by cornfield, and we got a goat farm across the highway.
Oh, wow.
So I was led to believe from my parents that atheists were bad people. Like, it wasn't even really a topic subject. It had only come up once or twice in my childhood I can remember,
Right.
and we were just told that atheism was bad. There was no reason given for why it was bad. It was just bad.
Right.
I don't even honestly think my parents understood what atheism was. Um, and in my mid 20s, after reading more and more information and being able to research, the internet being a huge part of that, um, I came to find out that the reason people have bad connotation with the word atheist is the Cold War.
Mm.
We were fighting them atheist communists. And when I realized that the definition of atheism is simply the rejection of a God claim due to insufficient evidence,
Right.
I took on that label. It didn't bother me anymore.
Okay. All right. So did you get any pushback from family and friends when you finally did decide to let
Uh,
everybody know?
yeah, I got some pushback from my immediate family members. Not really too much from friends. Over time, though, like, my brother and my sisters kind of fell into that same direction, although my sisters later went to a different direction. They do Norse pagan
Oh, okay.
type religious beliefs. And then my brother, I would actually classify my brother as more as agnostic than atheist.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Um, my dad's still a God-fearing man. My mom claims she is. Really, the only friction I got with coming out as an atheist was there was a Christmas a couple years ago, and we were at my grandma's house, and my grandma had asked, and my two children at the time were very tiny, um 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old.
Mm.
And my grandmother asked me if I had them in Sunday school, and I said no. And then she asked me why, and I said, well, because I'm an atheist, and if that's something they want to choose for themselves, they're going to do that when they're an adult, and I'm not going to make them do it as a kid. And I got friction for that one. My grandmother had no idea I was an atheist. My uncle's wife was sitting next to my grandmother, and her jaw about slammed into the floor because they had no clue. And
Oh,
I wasn't like trying to ruffle anybody's feathers. It didn't even occur to me that saying that would cause a problem, but
right, right.
it very much did.
Yeah. And I've noticed too that a lot of the times, if people would just leave other people alone, I think that their natural path would be to question. But I think the elderly are the ones who hold it all together. Oh, you don't want to make, grandma upset, and things like that.
Well, I'm actually convinced that's the reason my mother made us go to church. My mother was so desperate to get my mother's or my grandmother's approval.
Right.
That's why she made us kids go to church. I think that's literally the only reason.
Right. Right. And I've heard other people say their experiences where, you know, their parents pressured them to make sure the kids went. So yeah, I understand that a lot.
That's something I come across in a couple of the podcasts I listen to. It'll be a topic of subject, parenting and atheism, and then they'll have somebody talk about their experience with like this mom will have her mom watching the kids, and her mom is pressing this religious view on these children while
Right.
she's watching the grandkids, and it's just there's so many things that press my buttons when it comes to how Christians behave. And one of them is the arrogance that they can just do whatever they want,
Right.
regardless of how disrespectful it is. It doesn't matter. As long as they've got Jesus on their side,
Right.
they can say and do whatever they want. And that is just disgusting behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. Um, and I wanted to tell you that I love your hat. I love your TikToks.
I love this hat too. This is my favorite hat. I wear this hat like every day. Um, I got it at Pride in Minneapolis, I think back in 2017, and I have not been able to find another one like it. I've been online looking to try to find another one exactly like it, and I cannot find one.
Okay, all right. Now, since we brought that subject up, was it easier for you to come out, you know, with the LGBT or atheist?
Atheist coming out as an atheist was more or less an accident because I didn't really think anybody had an issue with it. I was aware of the social issues with coming out as LGBTQ. So my experience coming out with as LGBTQ was very long and arduous. It was not something that just kind of happened and then I dealt with consequences.
Right,
There was a time in my life when I really gave too much into what other people thought of me.
right, right.
And I came out to my family as bi when I was like 17-ish. Um, I came out as pan in my mid to late 20s. I've never exclusively dated a man because of my fear of social reciprocity or social backlash. And now I'm creeping up on 40. I'll be 38 in December, and I have ran out of fucks to give about other
Right,
people's opinions. I'm serious. That is a point I cannot stress enough, because as I'm flipping through TikTok, I inevitably will come up on a video where somebody is like, "Oh, I'm taking a break for a few days because of the bullies in my comment section," and I'm just at that point in my life where fuck a bully.
right, right,
Just let them say whatever the hell they want. I got no time for that. I'm not going to alter my behavior anymore. I did too much of it when I was younger. I gave up a whole piece of who I am
right.
because of bullies, and I'm just too old to care at this point. I'm gonna do me, and they can just live in their miserable little circle of hate-filled whatever.
And the bad part about that is, I think that most people, when they do hit that 30-ish mark, is when they say, you know what, I don't care. Because
Yep,
they've gone through all the, you know,
yep.
possible scenarios in their teens and 20s. By the time you hit 30, you're like, you know what, I can't help you. If you don't like me, you don't like me. You know,
Well,
I mean,
and in fairness, those videos that I see people doing that, these people are in their like early to mid 20s still. They haven't gotten to that
point, that
fuck it.
breaking
They
point.
haven't got it. Yeah, they haven't got to the breaking point, the fuck it all point. And I'm way beyond it. Way beyond it. But yeah, you like my office? Um, sit in my car
It's fine.
because this is what I do. I go to dialysis, I go home, I go to bed, and I go to work, and that's it. I don't have a social life.
Okay, since you brought that up, that was something that I wanted to bring up too, because I've noticed that on your TikToks a lot, and I've, you know, made comments and everything. When you get people on there, and I know you hate it, but I'm going to bring it up.
Bring
When
it
they
up.
say, I'm going to pray for you, when they're, oh, if you would just believe, maybe you could get better.
Oh,
How does that make you feel, for one? And for two, how do you combat those people?
Okay, so I have two initial reactions to that. My first initial reaction is an emotional one, and I have gotten to a place in my life where I can get control of it. But my initial reaction is I want to punch them in the face. I literally, my first initial reaction is I want to grab them and punch them hard in the face, because it is so disingenuous to say stupid shit like that to somebody who's going through what I'm going through.
Right,
I can sit here and become the best Christian on the planet, but because it's not going to bring my kidneys back.
right, right,
There's no way that's going to happen. My kidneys are dead and gone. The disease I had took them and shriveled them up. So it's very frustrating to have people say that to me initially. My secondary response is to keep myself in check and then do some kind of epistemology. I will bring up the fact that intercessory prayer has been tested, found to work at the same rate as chants. And actually, for people with medical conditions who are in hospitals, it actually makes things worse.
mm. I didn't know that.
Because people who are being prayed for, they're stressing over the fact that their family is that worried about them, and that
Oh,
stress
okay,
kind of contributes to a negative downfall in their health.
okay,
Now, granted, these are very small numbers proportionally as far as tests have been done and stuff, but I mean, there's still a very minor effect to the negative, rather than the positive.
okay, okay, all right. Yeah, because it seems like to me when people do, like, I know they probably mean well when they make those comments, but to me, I feel like they're taking advantage of it, because I know personally when I was younger, smaller kid, and I was in the Jehovah's Witness, every time somebody got sick, well, they use that as a, oh, well, bring your family in. And, it was a way to bring in more people. And I felt like that was just so wrong to,
Yeah.
for you to target people who, have a health issue or, something like
Well,
that.
I mean, that's kind of how religion works, isn't it? They're always
Yeah,
targeting the weakest of us. They're always going after mostly children. And you get them
right,
young. They really
right.
do. That I've seen that Jesus Camp movie. That shit is terrifying.
I saw
What
it
they,
too. Yeah,
oh man, what they do to kids is just so horrible. But then
right,
also the sick and the poor and the suffering. Like, I mean, look at what Catholic Church has done to Northern Africa. I mean, they're always targeting people who have nothing else. They're
right.
not targeting people who have a good grasp on reality, who are doing okay in life. They're always going after the people who are having weak points in their lives, or you know, and that's another thing that makes religion so disingenuous, especially Christianity in this country.
Right, right. And
So it's always alcoholics or addicts or homeless people, or they're always in those positions trying to
right.
give people their idea of what to cling to.
Yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people have noticed or not, but if you go to some of the poorer neighborhoods, those are the ones that have a church on every corner.
It's
So,
not even just that. Like a couple years ago, I was working oil field out in North Dakota, and I lived in a town that was just a little bit bigger than the town I grew up in, and had 14 churches
wow.
in a town of less than 3,000 people.
So, so
And
it makes you think like, wow, you can't agree, so you have to have 14.
well, the thing that blew my mind is you would expect to see like maybe one church for every denomination.
Right,
Nah, they had the same Lutheran church, but the exact same Lutheran belief, but two separate churches for that same Lutheran belief. And I'm like, you know what? Those are two separate Lutheran beliefs, because if it was one, they would just combine the church and be done with it.
right, right. That's what I was saying. They can't agree between each other.
Well, and that's something to be proud of. That's a topic in and of itself. That the Bible is not, it's not a source of good information in regards to the fact that it is completely left up to interpretation.
Right,
There is no authority. There's no baseline for understanding it. So you could take six passages out of the Bible. Actually, better yet, better analogy. You can hand three different people the exact same Bible, and you're going to come back with three different
three different
versions of that religion.
interpretations. Yep. You are so right.
Whereas, like, if you took a scientific document like Einstein's theory of relativity, there's no way to reinterpret that because the mathematics hold out.
Right.
Science is much more a powerful tool than religion.
Right. Right. Okay. So we're gonna take off this religious hat right now, or non-religious hat,
Okay.
and we're gonna put on your favorite subject. When
Ooh.
people talk about you're not American because you're with the LGBTQ community, and then they know that you know, are cool with guns, that blows their mind. Like, what do you?
Actually,
So
that's a narrative. That's a narrative that's been pushed by media. Look, I love news organizations. I don't like talking down about them, but they do screw up quite often. They
yeah.
play to an opinion base, and it irritates me.
Hmm.
I've caught NPR doing it. I've caught MSNBC doing it. I've caught CNN doing it a lot. But I mean, any common sense says if there's if there's newsworthy stuff, go to multiple sources, find the average, and that's what you're looking for. You're eliminating the opinion at that point.
Okay.
But one of the narratives that that these media outlets have pushed is that liberals don't like guns.
Right.
Left-leaning people don't like guns. They don't have guns. We want to take away guns. That is the biggest falsity they have ever pushed, because literally all of my friends own guns.
Right.
And if anybody thinks I'm friends with a Trump supporter, you don't fucking know me very well. I'm not at all. Uh, Leftists like their guns just as much as people on the right do. And believe it or not, that number is growing. It's growing pretty rapidly because COVID scared the shit out of people. And then you had Beto sitting on stage talking about taking guns away, which
Right.
which is a failure on the Democratic Party side. Every time somebody says that stupid shit, gun sales go through the roof. Democrats got to learn when to shut up.
Right. 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 And yeah, and that also plays into the politics type of thing too, because
Yep.
that's all they have to say. They know that that's a hot spot. If you say,
Yep.
"Oh, they're going to take your guns," then everybody's like, "Oh, we're against that," you know, that party. And it's like, who said? First of all, who said we were taking guns?
Like shit, if I knew in advance that Beto was going to get on international television and say that stupid shit, I would have bought stock in like 3 different gun companies, man. Like, I would have. But like, no, he did. And now, I mean, it's been months. It's been months since he done that. And now, to this day, I'm in Texas. To this day, I can't go to Cabela's and buy a gun that I would like
Right.
because they're sold out. Glock, Smith & Wesson, SIG, they're all backed up.
Mhm.
Nobody can get guns in, and as soon as they get them in, they go off the shelf. Ammo's scarce again because of all this.
So, do you think that because that too is another stereotype, where the people who are, you know, for guns, they're in the South, Texas, uh, you know, Louisiana, things like that. Those are all the pro gunners. But do you think it's, you know, spreading all around in everywhere now, different
Well,
states?
I think it was back in January, March, April, May. I think it was back in May. I walked into the local Cabela's and I was just shooting the shit with the guy behind the counter. And he told me that within 2.5 months, that Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop owns Cabela's, they had cycled over 3.5 million new gun registries, new gun ownerships
Wow.
in
Okay.
2.5 months. So I think the fear rhetoric that has been pushed by as a narrative by both political parties has literally rooted itself into American culture at this point. When gun sales go up that much, it's not just Republicans buying them.
Right.
You know, leftists and liberals are buying them too. Now, to be fair, you will find a liberal kind of press on getting rid of all guns, but that's so far extreme to the left. It's not a representation of the entire left. It's just an extreme out there kind of deal. In
Right.
the same way that QAnon is out there on the right side, there are groups of liberals who want to just
Yeah.
take all guns away from everybody. and that's not really a thing. We're Americans. We like our guns.
And it really doesn't come up until one, it's an election year, or two, something happens like when the guy shot
Yeah, the
in
big
the
shoot.
movie theater, or the one in uh Las Vegas,
Yeah, the
something
Las
like that.
Vegas one, as a proud gun person, the Las Vegas one kind of threw, I think, everybody for a loop, because to this day we've never figured out what his motivation was. So he had no history of mental health. He had no criminal history. He had no political agenda history on any of his social media. Like, he came out of nowhere,
Mm,
did something incredibly ruthless, and
right,
then we just learned nothing about it.
right, right, right.
Um, but it takes a little bit of research. If you're willing to do a little bit of time and willing to do a little bit of research, you can actually find out that, what was it? The FBI and the CDC released some statistics related to gun use in the United States. They reported it in 2018 for 2017. I might have a few of these details wrong because I haven't really read it in like a couple of months. I read it very well a couple of months ago to base information off of, and then I haven't gone back and looked at it at all.
Okay.
But the report was saying that just over 60% of all gun related deaths in the US are suicides with a pistol.
Mm,
Like, so when they say that we have a gun problem and they go and cite 32,000, 34,000 deaths this year because of gun violence, they're not breaking that pie chart apart. So when I see a number that says 20 out of 34,000 gun related deaths, I see a number of 22,000 suicides, I think mental health problem. I don't think
right.
gun problem.
Exactly. Well, they're getting access to the gun, so maybe it's both.
It very well could be. But we don't live in a society where we can do the minority report type thing and stop people from acting in advance.
Yeah.
It's not a crime until they've committed
It's
the
a,
crime. That's the problem.
exactly.
So you can't, like the 17-year-old from Kenosha. That There's everything wrong with that whole entire situation, but nobody could have prevented it.
Right. Well, I just feel like his mother was more to
I
blame.
had a I had a guy in one of my TikTok videos comment, "Well, what would you have done if you were in Kyle's situation?" And I made a video response to it. I said, "I wouldn't have been there."
Exactly.
What You're taking an underdeveloped mind in a 17-year-old child who's highly prone to emotional fits of whatever, because that's just how teenagers are.
And
You're going
social
to put him in
media.
a Yeah, you're going to put him in a high pressure situation where his grounding for being there in the first place was InfoWars. Because so he's already wound up like a top. 17 years old, thinks he's on a righteous path of something because he got called to arms by InfoWars.
Right.
His parents are obviously promoting this in his head. Like, I personally, as an adult, would not have put myself in that situation. I'm not going to go to a place where tensions are going to be heated, where emotions are going to run high, and where the potential for violence is really, really high.
Right.
I'm not gonna do that. So I'm not, I'm the guy that thinks ahead of time. What teenager does that?
Right.
He should have never, ever, ever been there.
Right. Right.
Um, but we're talking about guns. So I have never looked at a gun and thought, hey, I could kill people with this thing.
Exactly.
That's never been a thought of mine.
Right.
I've been raised around firearms since I was like 5, 6 years old. My parents started teaching me how to shoot with a 22. And I've never had a near miss. I've never had an accident. I've always treated firearms with the utmost respect. And I look at them as though they are something fun. They're a hobby for me. But you do have people in this world, in this country, who look at a gun and say, yeah, this is because I want to kill people. And that's the problem. And I would honestly chalk that up to more mental illness.
Right.
So I'm a Star Wars nut. Here's a perfect analogy.
Yay, me too.
Perfect analogy. There were some novels that followed Return of a Jedi, that followed Luke Skywalker and did all kinds of other stuff. But there was this one book called Traitor, and hands down to this day, it is my favorite fiction book. It's the novel's about Jason, who is the son, one of the kids of Han and Leia Solo, and he gets captured by an alien race, and he is literally physically tortured. But the philosophy of the story kind of diverts away from Star Wars dogma, where it says there's a light side and a dark side.
Right.
What Jason discovers is that the Force doesn't take a side.
Okay.
That it's inside that person's heart decides what they're going to do with that power. So I can take a loaded gun and I can set it on the counter and it isn't going to do shit. But the person that picks that gun up, whatever's in their heart is what they're going to do. It falls on them.
Right, right. Now, see, something that you just brought up, and I know a lot of people are going to be really upset with me, but within the last, I want to say, 10 to 20 years is when, in my opinion, more Black people have started getting into having guns, registering. You were taught as a child from the age of 6, whereas other communities, especially our community, we're taught to be afraid of guns. And in a lot of situations, it's been people who had Black phones and they've been shot because the police will say, gun, gun, and they shoot them. Now, how would how is it that Kyle can carry a weapon across state lines, but if you see a telephone on a Black person, you shoot them and holler gun? Are we supposed to have guns or are we not supposed to have guns?
I fully support the Black community in this country having guns. By all means, exercise your Second Amendment right, 100%.
Right.
Because as soon as you normalize it, that's an automatic system to keep law enforcement. That's an automatic system to keep supremacy groups in check. It really is. The Second Amendment is there to ensure the rights and the freedoms and to ensure the other amendments are protected. So that's on the everyday citizen. The people who gather together in these militia groups can get fucked because their whole premise is the subjugation of another people. If African Americans in this country want to own guns, I fully support it. Defend yourself. It's your one and only life. So and nobody should have the right to take that away from you.
What do you suggest that more parents start showing their children how to use it at a young age, or do you suggest us going to our the Congress, or what do you think?
I'm gonna go with this. If you are, race be damned, Black, white, Mexican, Asian, I don't care.
Okay.
If you are interested in learning about firearms, look at your local community. There is bound to be gun ranges available. And within most gun ranges, if they have any kind of professionalism to them, they will offer courses and training. And that is absolutely something you should do. If you're going to get into the world of owning firearms, you need to know and be educated on how they work. You need to train with that firearm. You need to know how to break it down, put it back together. You need to know how to clean it and maintain it. You need to know everything about that gun. Mm-hmm. If somebody in their 20s is married, has kids, and they're interested in this, the parent gets trained, then the parent trains the kid.
Okay.
There are commandment laws or rules that you follow with guns. Muzzle awareness, never point the gun at anything you don't intend to shoot. Trigger awareness, never address the trigger till you're ready to shoot. Assume at all times that every firearm is loaded, because if you become complacent and you say, well, I just unloaded that, you're gonna make a mistake. You assume at all times that all guns are loaded and you treat them as such. And so there are rules that you follow, that you drill into your head repeatedly over and over again, so you get into a certain habit around them. Because I'm not going to lie, guns are dangerous.
Right.
But the more educated you are about them, the better off you are. My
Now,
parents taught me how to do it. I've helped teach children younger than me how to do it. My children, I worked with them, and then they have a stepdad that also works with them on it. So they're
hmm,
very aware of gun safety.
right. Okay. Okay. We talked earlier about how the media plays a part in it. You know as well as I do. Me and you are around the same age. I'm a little bit older, but the way the media had placed the advertisement for guns, they always showed where it's not safe for you to have a gun if you have kids. See, look what happened to so and so. The gun was locked in the lockbox, and they still killed. How do you get that message out and retrain yourself?
You,
Because those are the commercials I saw when I was younger. They was like, well, the gun was locked in the box, and the child still got a hold to it, and then it becomes an issue with the child services. And
yeah.
a lot of Black people don't want to deal with child services with something like that. So they just say, well, maybe we shouldn't have a gun.
Well, the one thing that parents I've noticed in general, the one thing I've noticed parents will make a lot of mistakes is they don't treat their kids like their kids are people. They
Yeah,
treat their kids like their kids are a ward. And some even go as far as treating their children like they're like the, through some lens of ownership.
yeah,
And that's just horrible. But treat your kid like a person.
mhm,
They'll listen to you. If you're educating them on something, if you're laying down the ground rules and you're repetitive about it and you're consistent with it,
mhm,
the kids will listen.
right,
But if you treat the gun as if it's off limits, as if you're a parent and you treat a gun as if it's taboo, all you're doing is increasing the curiosity of the child. When we're told as children not to do something, what do?
go do it.
Go do it. Kids are innately curious. They want to know more and they don't understand the danger. So it has to be explained to them. It has to be shown to them. It has to be repeated with consistency that this is not okay. You do not touch this item. This item is completely off limits.
Right.
Because when I had in my last marriage, when I had firearms, I had teenage kids. So I didn't have to really worry about it. They knew better. They had been trained with guns. They knew what the rules are with guns. But if I would have had younger children, I wouldn't have
Mhm,
behaved any differently than I did with my teenagers. I
right.
really wouldn't. My gun stayed on my hip at all times. It was on my nightstand when I went to bed. That's the rule. I don't leave it in a lockbox. I don't leave it in a safe. I leave it on me because if it's on me, I know that it's not going to get messed with.
Right. Right. Okay.
Um, and I mean that's just how I work. Not everybody has my circumstance, right? So there's you've got to really prepare for it. And like I said before, training and education are important. As much training as the adult needs, the kid needs an equal or more amount of training.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good advice. All right. Okay. So let's take off the the gun hat and put back on the LGBTQ hat. What kind of advice would you give for people who find themselves in these heavily religious organizations and they're questioning either they're questioning the religion or they're questioning their own sexual preferences or preferences, period? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, we're going to do this in two parts.
Okay.
Either or, you've got to be aware of your circumstance. Some people aren't in a place where coming out is healthy. It could, in fact, backfire and get them either hurt physically or hurt financially or, I mean, any number of ways.
Right.
So be aware of circumstance. If you're not in a place where you can literally become instantly independent, don't do it. If you're relying on other people for your survival, whether that be food, shelter, whatever the case may be. You're just going to have to keep it to your, I would suggest keeping it to yourself until you're in a place where you can take care of yourself and
Right.
you don't need other people's help. Once you've reached that place of independence, again, it's going to come down to each individual circumstance. Like how their family members view that is a huge one. If you're in a community of people who will happily string up a transgendered individual, I would suggest keeping it to yourself.
Right.
Atheist or gay aside, keep it to yourself.
Right.
You've got to consider your circumstances.
So, do you think that technically speaking, it could be more non-believers who are just not saying anything because of fear?
I think that there's a negative connotation with atheism. And I also think that tradition is so comfortable that people just go with it. It's just easier to follow the crowd than it is to be the individual.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of people who go to church every Sunday and just fall asleep. Like they just have no
Yeah.
belief in it whatsoever. I mean, there's probably a larger group that's like, well, what if they do the Pascal wager thing? What if there is a God? Do I really want to go to hell? And so they'll let that fear kind of rule them, where they're half in, half out.
Right. Right.
And I would like more non-religious people to identify as atheist. But I could want in one pocket and throw quarters in the other, and just the jingle will remind me of which one is full.
Right.
Um, as far as coming out LGBTQ, again, it's all circumstantial. It's, do you have allies that you can rely on if need be? Do you have friends that you really, really trust?
Right.
Because coming out for some people is not going to be a pleasant experience. You're very likely, in a lot of cases, going to get completely ostracized.
Yeah. And you have to be
Um,
prepared for that.
yeah, you have to have your ducks in a row. You have to have, because it's going to hurt. That's not going to be a happy trail for anybody. That's going to be a very emotionally taxing thing to go through. And you've got to be aware of that. So you need a support system, because, like, for instance, the transgender community has the highest suicide rate in the country.
Yeah, I saw that.
And there's a reason for it. It's because they oftentimes don't have support groups. They the transgendered individuals that I have met in my life that are out and happy and are transitioning are people who had a support group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the suicide stories I often read about are people who came out and were immediately rejected by family for whatever reason, religious or otherwise.
Yeah. It's
And that
usually
seems to be,
religious.
so you need to make sure that if you're going to come out as either an atheist or LGBTQ, it doesn't matter. You need to make sure that you have a support system in place. A
Right.
friend, a family member that you can, talk to, cry with, or whatever you need.
All right.
So that would be the advice I would give. Make sure you have some support system before you make any rash decisions. Do not react emotionally to coming out of the closet as an atheist or as a member of the LGBTQ community.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That I like that advice. And that did, yeah, if I was going to tell somebody else, something like, I would say that too, because if you're not financially stable, then you could find yourself homeless and things like that. And then that's when the suicide will be more likely to happen because you feel
Yeah.
alone.
Well, and statistically speaking, children who are kicked out of the home in their teens for being a member of the LGBTQ community or for whatever reason, they're statistically more likely to become addicted to drugs.
Mm,
They're statistically more likely to have been sexually assaulted,
right.
especially women and women of color. There are numbers across the board that show this. So it's really have that support. You got to have it, because without it, the alternative is horrifying.
Hmm. Yeah. And see, on the same token, though, religious organizations will use that as well. They'll say, well, if you go by your, if you lead this life of sin, this is what's going to happen to you. So you should stay here. And I just feel like that's wrong too,
Yep,
on
like I
so many
said,
levels.
religion picks on people who are at their weakest points.
Right. Right.
Guilt is their game.
Yeah. If they can make you think something is wrong with you, they can give you a fake solution.
Yep, sell you the invisible product.
All right. Well, I am not going to hold you up any longer, but what I do want you to do is go ahead and let everybody know where to find you if they want to follow you. What are your outlets that you're doing right now? Where they
Well, I
where,
got I got 2 channels on TikTok. I got my primary channel, which started out as me just being funny and doing comedy. But then, when my kidney started going into rejection, I went into a place of misery, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So all my shit's just ranting. But it's uh, Ethan.Lawless is my main channel on TikTok. My secondary channel is at Ethan.Lawless.2. And my secondary channel is more for fun, more for lightheartedness. I don't do any of my rants on that one at all.
right.
Um, my Instagram is Ethan__Lawless. Yeah, I'm gonna try to start doing more with Instagram too. Because Instagram is kind of opening up to more stuff, so I'm gonna try to get into that a little bit more. My YouTube channel right now is the 60-Second Atheist, and then once I've got all of my equipment squared away and I'm kind of in a position like what you're doing right now,
Hmm.
um, I'm probably going to change the name of it. But
I'll put all the links down there so that people could just, click on it to follow you. And you did just like I did. I made two TikTok channels, and I have one for dancing and crafts and things like that, and then I have the main one. So
yeah,
I understand that one completely.
well, I expect my channel to be banned. My main channel, I expect that thing to be banned every day I open it up.
Really?
I really do. I say controversial shit on there. Like, I went off. I made a video about Trump's inability to condemn white supremacy at the debate, and it is every other word F-bomb. It
Yeah,
is. I am waiting to get banned.
yeah.
Um, I made a video telling the white supremacy groups that are threatening civil war that, you know what, I'm on dialysis, have been all of 2020. I've got one foot in the grave already, and I'll happily take a few of you with me if you really want to shoot your shot. And so, like I said, some of this shit I say is pretty out there, and um, I don't care. But I am honestly waiting to wake up one day and my channel just be gone.
But I saw that when I saw that on social media, the people that I follow and things like that, we're sitting here like, who told you that we wanted a civil war? Who told you this? Like, who's talking to you? Because if you would talk to a black person, they would tell you, we didn't say that we wanted a war.
You know,
You're
I've
the one
never,
coming. They're coming at the racists are the one coming at everybody
yeah,
else because it's us now. But a year ago, who was it? Build the wall, build the wall. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So it's like they're working their way around. I guess when they're done with us, they'll go to Native Americans or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going
Well,
on.
here's kind of how I see it. I'm a part of the LGBTQ community, and while I no longer identify as either bi or pan or gay, I identify as sexual fluid. If I'm not standing here fighting for your right as a woman of color, how in the fuck could I ever hope that you would do it for me?
Right.
That's what community is. We take care of each other. And I realize that there's people in the LGBTQ community who are really shitty, and I realize that there are people of color who hate the LGBTQ community. It is what it is. But as far as like the bigger scope, if I'm not, I don't remember where it was quoted or who said it, But the idea that if I don't defend somebody else's rights, human rights, then when it comes to my turn, there ain't going to be nobody there to help me defend mine.
Right.
And so I think that the people of color and the LGBTQ community have a lot in common in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we together can be a powerful force, especially with as many allies as I've seen standing up recently.
Yeah.
People who are neither a member of, they're not a member of either community, but they don't give a damn. They're going to support it no matter what.
Right.
And TikTok is amazing on that front. Amazing. I have never seen so much support, so much vitriol for the campaigns in this country that are against human rights, as I do from people on TikTok. They really are. There really is an amazing group of people out there voicing human rights.
Which explains why he keeps wanting to take it down.
Uh, Trump's issue with TikTok is because of the Tulsa rally. Let's get that. Everybody who's listening to this podcast and watching this video, man, I swear, Trump's issue with TikTok has nothing to do with China. It has nothing to do with Trump being a businessman. He got punked at his Tulsa rally by a bunch of teenagers, and it's hurt his goddamn feelings. And so he's a child throwing a tantrum. Straight up, that's all that is.
You know, that's one of the reasons. But everybody coming together on there is another one.
Yeah.
Because the more people that come together is going to be against his policies. So it's like, oh well, let me try to stop this. But he doesn't understand if you make the new generation mad, it's not going to be good for you.
Yeah, I wasn't giving the new generation any credit because they were eating Tide Pods and snorting condoms at one point. And now all of a sudden they come out with they punk a sitting US president. Like, I had mixed feelings like a son of a bitch. I was like, you are both the most worthless generation and yet the most genius generation of all time.
I mean, because think about it, they grew up with the iPhone in their hand.
Yeah. But something I would like to definitely say is I want to tell your viewers to go vote. I mean, I realize that there's a lot of people out there who think the voting system doesn't work, and my only argument to that is we have same-sex marriage because of a result of voting.
Uh-huh.
And if people stop voting, and the left Dems are really lazy with this stuff. They don't vote. The left doesn't vote. It's, probably because the left doesn't feel they feel like voting might be some kind of nationalistic concept, and that falls right within the wheelhouse of conservatism.
No, it's because of everything that you've seen in the past. What has it helped? That's
progress is slow and arduous, but there is progress.
Yeah, you're right, and that's what people don't understand. That it's slow progress.
Progress would be a lot faster if more people voted. Like, that's a real thing. In the last election, 100 million Americans didn't vote at all. And if those 100 million Americans would have voted, progress would happen a lot faster. If the American voice gets heard at the political level, well, whether people want to believe it or not, it does. And that's how we got things like civil rights. That's how we got things like same-sex marriage rights. That's
right.
The reason progress feels so slow is because only 2/3 of the country vote, and 1/2 of that 2/3 is voting against the progress.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, the more people vote, the more progress moves forward. I would actually honestly like to get to a point where we don't even have a Pride Month for the LGBTQ community.
Every month.
I want being gay to be so normalized.
Yeah.
That nobody gives a shit.
And that's the point. With the young, and to be honest, with the younger people, it is. I feel like it's the same. I feel like it's the same as religion. Is the older people are telling you, "Oh, it's something wrong with that." Everybody else is like, "Okay, Bye, Grandma. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I recently posted a video on my TikTok. Oh, what would make America truly great? What would make America a wonderful society is if everybody just minded their own fucking business.
Yeah.
And I say it like that because it drives that point home. What
Right.
John Doe and Jane Doe do with their body is between them and their doctor. It's nobody else's fucking business. Who John Doe and Jane Doe decide they want to date, spend their life with, or pursue happiness with is nobody's fucking business.
Right.
So if we can reach a point in this country where literally what we do in our personal lives is nobody's fucking business, we'll be a lot better for it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And see, when we were younger, well, I don't know about you, but when we were younger, then you would hear stories of, oh, well, the people in Hollywood, they have things like a key party where they put in a key and, and it's like, what people should have been saying, well, did they have fun?
So long as it's consenting adults
I
and
know.
nobody's getting hurt, I don't care.
I don't care either.
I don't care.
What does that have to do with me?
Yeah, if they're happy doing what they're doing, fuck. I'm not gonna yuck on other people's yum. Be my guest.
I know, right? All right. Well, I'm not gonna hold you up, like I said, because I know you had some things to do today.
Nah. If you have questions, ask.
No.
Anything. I'm having fun with you now.
Oh, okay.
How long did you run your podcast for?
Usually I try to keep it between 40-45 minutes, so it won't get too long. But I've had a couple where it was an hour. I don't know if check out a couple. But we are almost at the hour mark now. So
yeah.
I'm just going to wrap this up for you. And we hit everything that I wanted to hit on. And everybody knows where to find you. So
I might have rambled a little bit, but we're good.
Oh, yeah, we're good. This is wonderful.
This has been fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. And for everybody else out there, we've come to the end of this episode. If you're not listening to this on the secularminority.com and you're on YouTube, make sure you check out secularminority.com, where I will have the show notes, the links of where to find the guests. It'll also be under here somewhere of where to find the guests. And it will be links for if you need someone to talk to. I have a resources tab at the top of secularminority.com. So if you find yourself in a bind and you need someone to talk to, you can check that out. I am Sunny Secular. You can find me on here, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. And until the next time, stay with me, family. I'm special, I'm smart, and I matter. Peace.